Hi, in this video we're going to talk about summarizing the data import module's HTML scraper provider. So this is just a quick summary of the entire provider, how it works, and we're going to see it in action. So we already created a configuration here, and we did the field mappings. So those are found in the previous videos you can find. And we have here in the preprocessor of the global level, we have DOM warnings and then update links for the post processor. So it will update the links within the items that were just imported. And then our DOM warning is just simply we are trying to look for Facebook URL if it's found in anywhere in the DOM HTML. So the company page, the URL page, has reference to the Facebook actually. So as you can see, there is a Facebook URL here. So what we have in this warning here, we're just trying to find this. If this is found anywhere in the HTML that we requested it, we're just going to track that as a report in the and give this message. So maybe later on the content authors might do some cleanup, some manual cleanup. So let's start running the import. And while that's running, the important thing to be aware of is like when you're mapping these fields, if you have a field mapping of the same field more than once, ideally it's better not to have it that way, but if you do have it, the better way is that each mapping that you are trying to find that content from in the HTML to be unique for only one URL. So in other words, if you're targeting the main content field, both of these are main content, but each one is trying to get it from a class name that is only found on one URL. So in other words, this class name here is not going to be found in two or more URLs. If that's the case, ideally it's better just to have one mapping for that one field. But in this case, we don't have that situation. So each one in here is not going to be found on all URLs. However, there is the global one of them only, which is, I believe, this. So our import is already done. It was fairly quick, and it imported the media library as well. So this one, I believe, this one is found on all of the URLs. But this one is only on one. So it's going to work in this case because this actually class is not in here. I'm going to correct that. This class is not in here, and this class path is only found on one URL, and this is found on many more URLs except the one that is on this. So in that case, it's going to work fine. Otherwise, if you happen to have like this class was found on the same URL to actually trying to target this to import as well, in that case, it's going to update it with this content that found under this class name, but it's not going to update it with this one. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's something we're probably going to have some other updates in the future to have a better handling of this situation. However, if you're just trying to grab one class, if you have your content, like it lives under one specific class, there's not going to be any issues of any kind. And we already used this in a live situation with live client, and it worked perfectly fine. So now the import is over. Let's review what we have. If we refresh this, and we should have some data here because our import media processor is pointing to this one as an import destination. So as we can see, the date mapping worked fine. Came here, and then the browser title and description, meta description, and the content field, the title field. And then as you can see how we had the URL structure right in here. It all matches. So you have the root and then the company. So here is the same thing here. Now the company should have the images mapped to it in the main content field. And as you can see, it is, and they are pointing to the media library. So they are not pointing to the URL that was in the HTML. So if you can see here, this is the actual URL came from the DOM HTML. But when we imported it, we ended up with this because this is the internal media item correspondent to it. And the same thing goes for the link, update link processor that ran globally on the entire process, which is here. As you can see, the URL of this profile that points to the person's profile, company/leadership/Mike Becker. But in here, we have a Sitecore GUID link because this is basically should be pointing to this item right here. So we should have the ID matches, and as you can see, the ID is the same as it was in the rich text. So the other important thing to talk about is how actually this whole import logic works based on the URLs. So let's say you start the import and gets this URL first time. What it does is just does the HTTP request on this first part of the URL and applies all the field mappings on it. Later on goes to the next level, which is this part, does another HTTP request on that to get the HTML data and applies the field mappings on that part, and then goes to next level would be this one and does another HTTP request on this entire thing and applies the field mappings and the processors on each field if there is. And then after it's done, it goes to the next line. Now already the import is smart enough, knows that this was already imported. It does not do anything on that. It just jumps to the next directory. So overall, this is how it does the process of the import. The other important thing to point that in the future, we're going to have an update come in that it will just the field mapping right now. This is how we do in the field mappings. If you follow the video for the field mappings, there's more detail on it. But this is more like a user friendly. However, we're going to have an option probably somewhere here that says you can just put your own plain XPath query here instead of doing it. So if you're you know about XPath, you're very flexible on it. You could just put your XPath directly instead of doing this type of mapping. And the last thing is the processors that you could create your own custom processor based on what you need to do, and it doesn't have to be in the module because it just runs based on a namespace, class, and the method name. So you could create some other custom processor and apply the namespace and so on, and then it should work either in item level or in a global level. Okay, so this is just an action of the video of the import process, and thank you for watching.